Good evening. Wait a minute. that was yesterday. Back to the day. Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's episode of OSR Reddit Roundup. I'm your host. There are those who call me Todd. All right. I don't think I have any programming notes to speak of. I think I'm ready to just get in it. Get as much OSR Redditing as we can get done in an hour. I kind of have a hard stop at the end of the hour, so hopefully we can get through some good things. Let's see what we have. No reason to waste any time on pleasantries or other such diversions. Got the yard guys working outside again, which you probably can't hear, but I can. And it's annoying. I don't mind saying that. All right, let me just hit refresh one more time. As per the usual, we're going to go on the hot tab, see what's hot. What's kicking. Someone made some Morkborg monster GIFs or GIFs. I'm not going to go with that, but I will check out the Hex generator. Let's see, is this going to take me somewhere? Oh. Up for you Redditors. This was submitted by Salty Goo. I made a Hex generator. And they want to say hi. I don't know what took me over this week, but I started building a Hex generator. It pulls from a list of 10 biomes: cold, desert, forest, plains, mountain, rocky, sea, swamp, jungle, urban, or generates a gate to the Underdark. There's also one chance out of 12 it will generate a special version of one of the biomes: corrupted, enchanted, cursed, etc. Each Hex generated has a feature, a hazard, and 2 monsters with a goal or personality. As of now, there's about 30 to the power of 2 combinations possible for each category. The language might be a bit clunky to accommodate all the possibilities, and also English is not my mother tongue, but I'd really love feedback. A bit of context: I collect monster manuals and bestiaries. This is an effort to insert them into my games. Right now, this generator works with a list of about 100 monsters found in the modules I ran or randomly picked from the 6K monsters of my collections. LOL. So there are some classic monsters missing and some random weird things too. I'll keep adding more monsters and biome features as I go. You can easily ignore the monster part of the Hex if it doesn't fit your universe. All right, so let's check it out. So we've got a link here. I will post the link to the chat. This is hosted on saltygoo.github.io. Saltygoo generator. There it is for you, if you'd like to follow along. We have a fantasy land generator. We can pick from surface or underdark, and it'll generate. And then it gives us a list. Gives us a list of all the lists it's pulling for the monsters anyway. Let's just generate a new one. So it's giving us multi-hex features, and it's not mapping them out for us. I think there's a text. What's it called? Is it shoot? There's a name of a generator that generates from text files and will create the graphics. It would be nice if this put out something that was compatible with that. I'm just can't remember off the top of my head what the name of that particular generator was. Can't remember. It'll come to me, or maybe someone in the chat. If you remember, there's a name. It's not HexKit. That's that app. Shoot. I can't remember the name of it. It's out there. But this is giving us, just so we can stay on target with Salty Goo, it's giving us, essentially it looks like a summary of some number of hexes. So for instance, we generated one for the surface. We get This 7-hex jungle is known for its steaming river. Beware, for there are orchids that look like enemies in the area. It is inhabited by sucking blood beasts and also a grieving death's head tree. I like the flavor. 7-hex jungle could be big or small. It's going to depend on how big your hexes are. The steaming river is a nice touch. I like the orchids, also a nice touch, but I don't know. The part, and maybe that's part of the clunkiness, right? Orchids that look like enemies in the area. I don't know. What is that? What does that mean? Maybe orchids, we could maybe bottom line that, and they have silhouettes that look monstrous. I don't know. There's probably some other way of writing that out that could be a little bit less clunky. Linky says, beware, for there are war banners that could make you fall in the area. Well, what? Yeah, there's probably things like that could be, clean up the language. I do like a grieving death's head tree. Very nice. Let's generate another one. Let's see what we get. This 6-hex desert is known for its gravel pass. Beware, for there are tremors that are set up by lizard people in the area. It is inhabited by sacred cassowaries and also sniffing warthogs. So interesting desert. I didn't know if cassowaries and warthogs are desert creatures. I don't know, maybe. And we'll do one more. I like the gravel pass. They all have that kind of beware. Nope. Here, this one has the ruined elven temple found in this hex is a gate to the Underdark. Descent below is complicated by the horrible smell coming from it. Cool. Well, let's do one more. This 4-hex forest is known for its forbidden idols. Beware, for there are elven runes that attract goblins in this area. It is inhabited by elven shadows who despair to wield magic again, and also nightmare centipedes. Yeah, this is cool. I like I said, I think it's called. Oh, I wish I knew the name of it. It's gonna drive me nuts that I can't remember. It's something hex text hex something text hex. So the couple things I would know. One, I like it. Got great color. They seem have a nice thematic to it. The text itself, you can see as I've done a few of these. Right, there's clearly a formula when you hit something that says beware, and you get a lot of those beware. Maybe that I don't need. I think for this on the GM side, I might prefer just having more information, even if it's not in a narrative form. This is kind of a narrative form, which might be what you would tell the players. For instance, I might say about this for Hex Forest, it might be nice to give it a name. This is the Forest of Forbidden Idols, like that's the name, or the Forest of Idols or something. I don't know, whatever that is. And then if I was say this to the players, like they were encountering this, they ask some local farmer, hey man, what's that weird wood looking up over there? They go, oh, that's the Forest of Forbidden Idols. Don't go in there. There's apparently, I've heard there's elven runes in there that attract weird goblins. And I've seen shadows. People said that shadows lurk in the moonlight and they wail, right? That's kind of player facing stuff. From the GM side, I just would just give me the bullet points of these things. And frankly, if you're going to give me a 4-hex, then maybe just give me what the different hexes are. You're run the generator a couple times. Maybe it's some way you can run the generator so you can get variations on your overall theme, and then put it in a format that I can use potentially with one of those other hex generators. But altogether, good job, Salty Goo. Don Rossavelli, welcome, Don. Love the channel, love the vids on hex crawls. I'm still learning. Well, hey, I'm glad you like it. Glad you're here. Feel free to shoot me any questions, anything. Awesome. Always happy to hear that people like this stuff. I appreciate it. Hey, Nothing says, that's fun. I find it so hard to use this type of random generator in my game because they never quite align to my specific campaigns. I'd like more bland descriptions and less craziness. Yeah, there is definitely a trend to go more gonzo with stuff. I think I understand it. It gets you more attention. It gives you more of your own thing. Whereas I think a lot of people are going to look at just vanilla fantasy and say, it's just vanilla fantasy. But I hear you, because I tend not to be super crazy in my games, for the most part. So I would find that, I'd want to dial these back a little bit. But if they're great for getting inspiration, I could certainly look at this and say, maybe this itself doesn't work in my campaign. But if I spend a couple of minutes, fiddling with it, tweaking it, thinking about it, then I probably would get something I could throw in my game. But then that just means I need to know that if I'm going to use this type of generator, then I'm doing it at that point in my prep process, right? Not in game time when I need a hex right away, because it's going to take me a few minutes at least to suss things out. Don also says collaboration with Daniel from Mantis Keeper, awesome, thanks. And I need to come up with another topic for Daniel. I'm behind on that. So we do usually a trade-off where we kind of do videos on each other's channels, and for this swap, I've done mine on his. He hasn't come on mine yet, and that's really because I need to think of a topic. So if you have a topic, let me know. All right, Salted Goo, well done. I got an upvote. And if you're on Reddit and you feel like that's a good generator, go and hit Salted Goo with some praise or some suggestions. All right, what do we got next here? Here we go. OD&D Wilderness Exploration. That sounds good. Whoa, now this is meaty. OD&D Wilderness Exploration, posted by Investigator Hungry. Make sure to upvote our fellow Redditors. One thing that I find, sadly, missing from many clones is the explicit explanations given in the Little Brown Books about the interactions players may have with castles discovered in their travels. And then he's giving a quote, presumably from the 3 Brown Books. Castles. The inhabitants of these strongholds are determined at random. Occupants of these castles will venture out if a party of adventurers passes nearby. Passing over the castle hex, there is a 50% chance, 1 in 3 on a 6-sided die, that they will come out. If 1 hex away, there is a 33 1/3% chance, that would be a 1 to 2 on a 6-sided die. And if 2 hexes away, there's only a 16 2/3 chance, a 1 on a d6. If the party is on the castle hex and hails the castle, the occupants will always come forth if the party is not obviously very strong and warlike. Patriarchs are always lawful, and evil high priests are always chaotic. All their castle inhabitants will be either hostile to the adventurers, 50% chance, or neutral, another 50% chance. Determine the occupant of the castle as follows. And I presume they are replicating a table from the 3 Brown Books. And we have some information on fighting men from within castles, magic users, clerics, and guards. And then we have another table. And then let's see. And I guess his question or comment is, I guess I'm curious on your thoughts. Have you used this at your table, or would you rather come up with this stuff without? I've only recently started using these, and I found it immensely helpful in keeping things fresh on hex crawling. Nobody's commented yet. Yeah, I do use these. Not that my players in my current game have come across a castle of that sort yet. They've come across one place, but there are other things going on that I didn't need to rely on this. But yeah, I definitely like it. I think that it's that, to me, that kind of, I don't know what I want to call it, the element of the frontier, maybe not even the frontier, the element of frontier in terms of not under the control of a particular kingdom, where folks have gone out and they've made their way before you. You are an adventurer who's come to these wild lands because it is open, because there's very little authority, potentially, or that authority isn't very strong. And you're able to go out there and do stuff. And here you have these figures who have done this before you and made their own strongholds out here. And you find them. And it's a neat, I think the concept is neat. It's a neat way to get shelter. It's a neat way to bring in social elements. Even some of the interesting things like, that this knight wants to come on and joust you. And also introduces that domain element play. If you're wondering how to get your players thinking about domains and what that might look like if they're new and low level, then having them come across a castle for someone who already is there. Not a ruin, not something to go and be just exploited potentially, but this is somebody's stronghold. And this is what they can do. This is what they have. This is what it means. Then it puts also that thing in their mind of, this is something that I can do. Oh, this guy's got a stronghold. I want to have a stronghold. Maybe I want their stronghold. So I do like it. I'm curious, folks in the chat, if you have thoughts on if you've used the classic castle mechanics from OD&D, if you use them. Let's see. Terrence in the chat. Hey, Terrence. Topic: TPK in your group for petty but therapeutic catharsis. Yeah, that might be a pretty short conversation, but I'll take it under advisement. Don's got a topic. Would love to see, this is for me and Bandit's Keep, I presume, would love to see a real explanation of hex travel using horses. I find it vague and contradictory from different editions. Thanks. Yeah, and I think everyone's got their idiosyncrasies on horses and their use. So the way I tend to look at it with your everyday horses is they don't actually speed you up very much, if at all. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't know. It's just my feel of it. I don't know if I'm thinking a lot about not everybody's on horseback, because oftentimes you think about, oh, okay, this person's traveling on horseback. If they have a retinue, usually not everyone's on horseback. Maybe the knight is on horseback, but the squire and the other retainers are walking besides the horse. So just because you usually think about it in terms of movement in games, movement is taken from the slowest member of the group. It doesn't matter overall how the faster guy, how fast the fastest person can move, because they need to wait for the slowest person. So you just judge the slowest person. But I usually think of horses at a walk as not being super faster than people walking. And I don't know if that's true or not. That's just how I envision it in my head. A horse at a walk, you're talking over long distances, because you're not walking just a mile. Long distances, if you have your horse at a walk, you're walking, I think it's about the same, plus or minus. I'm not saying the horse isn't a little bit faster, but is it fast? Is it enough faster that we need to factor that into our calculations? My sense is no. Having no particular knowledge, and I would happy to be corrected, and I'm happy to amend my own internal calculations if that were shown to be not true. If someone says, no, a horse walks about 1.5 times or 2 times as fast as the person, therefore that's a meaningful enough difference to want to track, fine, I'm with you. If you've got something like a riding horse where you're lightly encumbered, or you don't have a heavy amount of packs, and you're on what I think is maybe an Arabian steed, something that's for riding, and you're able to do that, right? You don't have people who are on slower mounts and you can ride, then that increases the pace. If you're someone like cavalry or the Mongols, they had oftentimes multiple horses that they would trade into. So they would have, I think the Mongols in particular would have 2 or 3 horses per warrior, at least in their fighting forces, so that they could really ride a horse out, switch horses, ride them out. So yeah, they could really push them more. As adventurers, you don't really have that option, generally speaking. You don't have spare horses. Same thing when you hear about these feats of messengers taking messages across tremendous distances on horseback. They're often trading out their horses. They're running one to death, and then they hit the way station, they pick up the next horse, and they run that one to death, and they continue on. There probably are exceptions there, I am sure, but I don't want to judge my rules on the exception. I'd rather judge my rule on what happened 99% of the time, and the 1% chance that somebody did something amazing, that there was a super horse, fine, but I'll go with the 99% as far as making my rule. So I generally look at, okay, if we want to bottom line it, a walking horse, more or less the same as a walking person, so I'll just call that a wash. Riding horse, you can decide how much faster you want to make that. And then, oxen and mules and donkeys, all the ones that are essentially walking, particularly when they're carrying loads, are going to be about the same speed as a person, or even maybe slower as a person if they're got a wagon load or other things that they're carrying. And I'm also looking at, we got to think about most roads. We're thinking our general medieval ages, fantasy kind of, roads are barely paved. The Romans had those Roman roads, but after the Roman roads, and if you're in a situation where you didn't have some exceptional empire like the Romans, who were, just obsessed with creating those kinds of logistics programs, they were dirt ruts, especially outside of cities, where they may have paved them with cities and things like that, but out in the countryside, it's just dirt ruts, easily become impassable. Maybe you put some boards if things were getting muddy, but those could easily be stolen or just get washed out. They weren't very good. So I don't look at it like, well, if I'm walking on the street in a modern day city, I can walk this fast, so therefore my party can walk that fast. I always end up slowing it down. I'm thinking now I actually went too far in the wrong direction. I think I maybe in my game, I think movement may be too slow, and I've been reading more sources on it and making me think, well, maybe my 12 miles a day is too slow. I'm thinking of maybe upping it to say 18 miles a day, but I also want to keep in mind that things aren't moving straight. You know, you look at a 6 mile hex, you see that straight line, one face to the hex to the other face to the hex, 6 miles. Isn't that easy? But I always think the roads is having lots of curves to it, following the geography, not being nice and straight, but having lots of winds and curves and not being super efficient. So I don't mind slowing things down in terms of when I'm counting hexes. Maybe you can walk 24 miles in a day, but in terms of hexes, that still I might only say, well, you only crossed 2 or 3 hexes and not 4 6-mile hexes, because of the fact that not everything is straight. And that's only if you have trackways and other kinds of roads. If you're going through the wilderness, I am happy to slow you down even further. But that's my bit just off the cuff on horses and riding versus walking. Well, a lot of comments here in the chat, so I'll just get to those. Let's see. Terrence says, maybe being mounted can mitigate hindering terrain if everyone is mounted. I would say, yeah. And I think the other thing that I haven't really figured out in my own case is mitigating fatigue, I imagine. Though there's a different kind of fatigue, right? There's the fatigue from walking. But as people, if you've sat any time in a saddle, especially if you're not used to it, but even if you are used to it over a great period of time, it's a different sort of fatigue. So you're trading one kind of tiredness, which is you potentially with a pack on your shoulders, hoofing it along on foot. And then for that fatigue of now you've been sitting upright in the saddle and stirrups for 12 hours or however long. Even though you're not wearing your pack, you've got it mounted on your horse somehow, it's still tiring. So I don't even know if as far as when you're abstracting everything out, if it even makes sense to try to differentiate between those. But I'm open to being persuaded one way or another. Let's see. Null Terminated. Hello, Null Terminated says, I'd like to see a return to the Mega Dungeon topic where you remake one from the shelf like you touched on with Barrow Maze in the broadcast video. Oh, I could try to do that. I definitely have Barrow Maze. I have other ones. I got to read through them. The thing is, maybe that's one to get on with Daniel if we ever do a series of practical things, is because I've never really run a Mega Dungeon. I kind of have one in my game. It's not really set up as a Mega Dungeon, but it fits the definition in terms of it's a large structure that the party can explore over multiple sessions. So it kind of fits a Mega Dungeon, but it's not really positioned as a Mega Dungeon in the sense of this is the thing that you're going to be concentrating on most of the time. So I kind of feel like I need to run one first before I really get a sense of what I want out of a Mega Dungeon. Don Roosevelt says, I agree, that helps. Thanks. Okay, I assume that's about the horses. Cool. Glad to help out on there. Bob Mostel. Hey, Bob. Says, if you want verisimilitude regarding horses, you need to use levels of exhaustion too, because what horses do is not so much speed things up, but allow you to carry your stuff and not get there exhausted. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I agree with that. Though, of course, riding horses has its own exhaustion attached to it. But yes, I could easily see that you go from having, like you're saying, if you have multiple levels of exhaustion, let's say you had 5 or 6, that walking would put you on level 2 and riding would put you on level 1, or however you want to do it. That definitely, yeah, it makes sense. Terrence likes that idea, likes Bob's idea. Yeah, excellent idea, Bob. Don also likes it. I also keep that in mind too for carrying heroes, getting there faster. Yeah, the thing is with horses and those things, they do allow you to carry more. Bob says, into some more unsighted stuff, I think you'll never beat a horse in the 100 meters, but you can outpace them over the course of a day as far as that goes. Yes, and that's kind of my point with the animals. And this is something I remember hearing, and I saw some program that was about it's all about humanity's rise as a species. And one of the things they said about humans that I remember is in places like the African, not the steppe, I want to say, like the plains, right? The Serengeti, that kind of situation. Forgetting the word for the biome, the terrain, but animals certainly over a sprint would go faster than people. We all know that. However, animals would have to, over the course of a migration, a long-term movement, much like we're doing in a hex crawl, long-term movement, not a sprint. We're not just running a couple of miles. We're going hundreds of miles potentially over days and days and days. Is that people's ability to walk without pausing, without having to stop, being able to do so without having to find shade, without having to stop and graze. Ability to do that at a pace actually was allowed them to follow these animals. These hunter-gatherer types could follow and stick with these herds of wildebeest or zebra or whatever, because they could pace with them. Because even though, sure, if they clapped together and caused a stampede over a short distance, yeah, those herds are going to just dust them. They're gone. But over those long periods, because the animals have to take breaks, they have to move at a slower pace, they have to do all these stops, and people can just kind of keep going at even the odds in terms of how far they can move over the course of a full day or multiple days of travel. So with the horses, sure, they can push faster in shorter periods of time. And that's one benefit of the horses is, okay, it's fine. You're walking at the same pace of your horse. Then the dragon shows up and you got to get a couple of miles down the road. You can run or you can ride. Which one's going to get there first? Well, the ride is going to get there first. So wouldn't you like to have that at your disposal if you do need to all of a sudden sprint at a high pace over a short period of time? You'd rather have that than just running. So that is a benefit. You do get to call on short-term bursts of much more speed than you could on your own. And then, as Bob said, you have different levels of exhaustion. You get to carry more stuff. If you don't even care about speed, then using oxen or donkeys or mules or things that even have better carrying capacities, because we're really not worried about speed. Especially if you're in a situation where you're going out to dungeons and back, if they're going to be carting treasure, their ability to just carry more stuff without getting hopelessly encumbered is a very useful feature. Elfbait, hey Elfbait. Long established that horses do not speed up travel. Okay, good. Also adding, you spend as much time resting, walking the horse as you do riding it. Yep. And then Bob Mosel says Savannah. Yes, that was the thing about on the Savannah, right? So yeah, all those things agree with me. Yeah. So all those things kind of lead you to that. If you're just walking your horse, it's more or less the same, but you do get some perks. And then, of course, if you can't, there are certainly horses and styles that allow you to speed burst, get more speed, but they come with a cost. If you're on a riding horse and you're riding it for speed, you're not carrying a lot. If you're really trying to ride at really fast speeds, then you have to really have multiple horses, and you still can't be carrying a lot. So forget your heavy armored warrior on your heavy horse. You are somebody lightly armored or not armored at all on your light horse. So you got to pick your poison. You can have the speed, but then you lose out some other things, or you can be slower, but you can have more stuff. And Bob also says, and of course, since you're OG OSR, you got to have mules to carry treasure. Absolutely. And Elfbait says, we had a party that rode around in a caravan wagon pulled by oxen. My current party has, their caravan is pulled by horses, but yeah, they have a wagon with a couple of horses attached to it. And then they also are on, I don't think they've equipped pretty much everybody who's not in the wagon on horseback, but because of the wagon, they're not traveling particularly fast, but they do have that option. If they need to really race, they can try. Bob Mazel says he wants a Hussite armored wagon. Armored wagons would be very cool. I should introduce that at some point. That would be fun. And then Frederick Orke Frederick says, I thought they rode those bounder cat-like creatures in 5e. Ooh, I don't know. It's a good thing I'm not playing 5e. I mean, not that I mind riding on cat-like creatures, but it wouldn't fit this particular game. Elfbait says, a mobile roof over your head with a stove, buns, etc. Yeah, didn't Acquisitions Incorporated, don't they have that? One of their things is a whole bit about like war wagons or these really souped up kind of pseudo magic wagons. Now, Nothing says, I've heard anthropologists think that the primary way early hominids hunted animals was to just jog after them until the animals suffered heat exhaustion, then stab it with a spear. Yeah, I believe it, because from what I read, that's definitely a thing. And if you could keep that animal from being able to drink and feed, and it just has to keep moving, I think I've heard that too as a technique, along with things like driving off cliffs and other things, is you can exhaust them. That was our main kind of offensive weapon, I think, other than our brains and opposable thumbs, was our ability to not necessarily be as fast over the short game, but have that really long game that a lot of animals don't have. Bob Motzel says, Winnebago Warrior. Absolutely. That's a good one. Where's it? We just need that. What was his name? That was a Winnebago man. He would be the god. You have to give him a kindness. Would you give him would you give me a kindness? That would be your mantra. All you need is a hut in 2nd edition. Hey, Marcelo, how are you doing? Happy Friday. All right, got a good crowd in here. All right, well, let's get back to it. Enough about horses, though I appreciate the question, and I'm glad that we were able to talk about that because it's actually pertinent to some stuff I'm working on my own about horses. Let's see. 12 watching and only 6 thumbs up. Let's fix it. Yeah, go ahead and if you're in here, give it a thumbs up. And hey, if you're not subscribed and you're in here and you're loving all this chitter and chatter, go ahead and subscribe. In the meantime, let's find another thing. Let's find another thing to look at here. We did OD&D Wilderness Exploration. OSR DM resources. What's essential for your game? That's a good one, but I don't know if it's... I feel like they're asking, are they going to be giving us some stuff, or are they going to be asking for some stuff? Do you use relative descriptions or make use of a compass? I make use of relative descriptors. I will say, to your left, to your right. If it's obvious what the direction is because the sun is moving across the sky and they can easily see it, I might use your east, north, west, south, but certainly underground, other places, I will give your left, your right. Got some Inktober. Drop tables, yo. I'll skip the drop tables. Let's see in the chat, Bob says, and I like the linking of a good place to rest with the getting of the benefits of a long rest. Yep. I think the picking a place to rest is an underrated decision space. It's hard to do a lot because you think of, you're in the woods. What does one clearing do with another one? But you could probably turn it into something gameable and have it affect certain things like getting rid of exhaustion, like your chance of wandering monsters. There probably are some ways to add a little meat to those bones to make it something more interesting than we tend to do, which is just kind of think about, I want to be in a clear space. I want to be with a giant rock. I want to be next to a tree. And then you just kind of go, okay, and then it doesn't really do anything. We could probably fix that. I might have to mark that down to do something with later. Terrence is up with the chatter, but not with the chitter. Come on. The chittering of little feet, which usually means you've got a roach problem. Frederick says there have been a lot of questions lately on children's games and sci-fi. I haven't seen those, but if I see one. Elfbait says, this happened in my last 5e game. Had the ranger roll, and the result determined how good a space they found. Yeah. I mean, certainly if you're going to have a ranger class, that's definitely an outdoorsy, that kind of ranger sort of class. Then having some sort of ability to find places to camp that have that benefit. Maybe you recover an extra hit point when you rest. Maybe that chance of wandering monsters goes down a tick, right? And so if it's 2 and 6, now it's 1 and 6. If it's 1 and 6, it's just 0. Elfbait says they rolled well, and so they found a hollow under a tree protected on 3 sides and partially concealed. I like that. Terrence says maybe a good camping space could lower the random encounter space. Chance. Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. All right, let's see what we have here. Pizza boxes, labyrinth ward. Okay, here's one. Let's take a look at this one. This is entitled, How Do You Handle Maps and Navigating Dungeons? Posted by Freelance Rebel. Upvote here. They say, new to DMing and wanted to ask about how others typically run things like mega dungeons that require lots of navigation and descriptions of rooms. It feels like giving players a map without all the important stuff like treasure, monsters, etc. would be the easiest to do. They could choose to navigate to specific rooms or a general direction. What I'm wondering is if others feel like navigating via theater of the mind is more engaging or aids in the immersion of the experience compared to using a map. Any thoughts would be appreciated. Well, Freelance Rebel, I will say that I am opposed to just handing the players a map. Maybe I'm just mean curmudgeon DM, but you got to earn that, pal. You got to earn it. You draw the map, you map the place out, then you're welcome to your map. I'm not giving you a map. Just not doing it. You can decide how important it is for you to know where you're going and know where you've been. I'm not handing it out to you. I am someone who plays Theater of the Mind pretty much, that's it, pretty much all the time. I don't have any games on Roll20. I've never played any games on Roll20. I've never run games in the past on Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or anything else. So I don't even have that element. It's theater of the mind. If you want to map, you map. That's a call for the players to do, which is why I get into the on your left, on your right. They can determine, whether it's once you're underground, especially am I facing north, south, east, or west? That's up to you. It can get a little confusing, and sometimes I have to spend that moment, and they'll watch me kind of doing this, or I'm thinking, okay, you're facing this direction, and then you do, I'll do that little jazz hands navigation dance every once in a while when I have to try to reorient myself, but that's how I do it. Is it more engaging? I don't know. Probably there's different kinds of engaging. I think that that just handing them a map is not engaging at all. It is the least, I would think in my brain, it's the least engaging. You're handing them a map. Now, if it was a map that actually existed in the fiction, like, ooh, we found the old treasure map and here it is, that raises it up the engagement scale. And I don't have a problem with that. If they find a treasure map or they find a map, or someone gives them a map to a place, that's fine. My opposition is to giving them essentially a map from the meta space. This doesn't exist in the game world anywhere. I'm giving it to you just for ease of play, I guess. I don't know. To me, that's not engaging at all. Stuff that they find in the game that has maps, I'm fine with. I think when you're handing them a pre-made map, it's not about aid in immersion. It's really about simplicity of running the game. Because they could just say, okay, we're here, and they could show you here, or you have it digitally going here, and then it's clear to everybody what's happening, and it just makes it faster. But I wouldn't say any of the advantages of anything to do with immersion. All right, let me head back up the chat. Hey, Nicholas says, there's some good stuff on ROSR. Oh, we had an interview. All right. Yeah, there, you got stuff you got to deal with. But I since I'm doing these streams, I don't tend to look at OSR that much on other days of the week. I kind of save it for today. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do. No, nothing says I sometimes have the party find a good place to camp that has some advantage, but they find it with 2 more hours in the day, so they have to choose stop early for the bonus or keep going. That's kind of a cool system as far as getting back to the camping goes. And then Frederick says, sometimes a camping space is too good. Can anything be too good? I mean, if it is, it's kind of probably like a Venus flytrap kind of thing. It's the trap. Lull them in a false sense of security and then pounce. Let's see. Bob Mostel, I think, says, toggle the fog of war off on the virtual map. Yeah, I don't use any virtual maps. I love that people love the line of sight stuff in the fog of war, but I usually just would rather not have to reveal the whole. I mean, I guess the fog of war hides the map. Are they getting easier to implement? Because I know some people would mention before that seemed to be kind of a pain to do. Maybe it's easier now. Terrence says that random comfy in we found in the woods is an overweight mimic. That would definitely be the too goods to be true category. And then Frederick also says the players found this nice old lady who lived in the woods. Her skin was just a little green and scaly. Yeah. And Terrence with the nubile farmer's daughters that are cannibals. Nice touch. Kind of a trauma. Dungeons, Dragons, and trauma. Frederick Gore says the bard tried to seduce his way out of the battle. She told him to get undressed and get in the bath. She added some taters and carrots for the skin and hair. That's the old like Bugs Bunny and the Witch routine with the bath. That's the soup, the cauldron. Bob Mossel says using partial, in parentheses, faulty, in character / game maps is underused too many times as a player. I've been in a situation of picking a fork in the corridors and locking up. There's no reason to pick either one. Yeah, I mean, as a G, you want to try to add context. I mean, that said, there are the one. So I guess I'm of two minds, right? So on the one hand, I totally agree. You get to these spots and you have no information to make a decision. You can go left, you can go right. They both look the same. And that is, I would say, a or at least a poorer decision space if essentially both ways are identical. because they don't give you. You're making a decision, but you're not making an informed one. You're not making one that has much weight because you have no way of differentiating what's more dangerous or what's more lucrative or anything about those two things. It's really just random. You can just roll some dice and pick one. And of course, if there are things that are super dangerous on one corridor and not on the other, one would hope that there would be context around that. Now, all of that said, though, how often in our lives do we run into places that essentially have left or right corridors that have no particular difference? Go into your average residential building, office building, take down the signs. Every floor looks the same. You're going to see a bunch of doors. Everyone, if the names don't mean anything to you on the doors, or if they're not labeled at all, you're in that same space of you're looking at it. You're the delivery guy. You're getting out on the second floor. I got to deliver this to 2D, and you could see that. And I've seen that when I've been looking for the delivery guy. He steps out of the elevator and he does one of these. Right. Both ways look the same, and it's almost okay. I'm looking at my paper. I'm looking again. All right, I'm going to have to walk down like one or two doors, try to get a sense of what's happening there. Then I might have to walk back and go to the other two doors, get a sense of what's happening there, and then I can make some conclusion. So what I would say is, though, yes, you may have that thing where the fork looks the same way. Hopefully, by doing a little bit of what the delivery guy does, of maybe I go a little bit down that one, and if it starts to get really dangerous feeling, then move back. But it's important as a GM that we acknowledge that by having things around that area, because eventually as a delivery guy, you do get to something that's going to say, hey, I'm going the right way or I'm going the wrong way. Same way in the dungeon, if there's an ogre back down that way somewhere, at some point you should start seeing, smelling, hearing ogre. It shouldn't be pristine. And if you have killer rabbits on the other side with fangs, you should start seeing lots of killer rabbit poops at some point in the corridor. It shouldn't just be pristine either. Now, nothing's got a slight disagree here. If uninformed decisions weren't exciting, Las Vegas wouldn't exist. You just don't want every decision to be informed. The thing is with Vegas is they're not uninformed. Your decisions, for the most part, are informed, and they will actually give you the information. You may not know what the odds are exactly of craps, let's say, but the odds are pretty apparent. There's some games that it's obfuscated, right? But the thing is that it's like that I think it's more similar, or it's more similar. It's more like people love to roll criticals. You may only have a 5% chance of hitting, but your eyes light up, you get a 5% chance of hitting. Likewise, you could look and you could see on a roulette wheel that I got a 1 and on a 100 shot, I get this one number coming up, but if it hits, right? And then you have things like I said, craps, blackjack, where they kind of play. I think it's more about you don't know the full story of the odds, because obviously if you're in a 1-deck blackjack game, the odds are different than if you're in a 5-deck blackjack game, and all those ways where they kind of get the odds, but they're obfuscated. But I wouldn't say that Vegas, it's really uninformed. I think oftentimes they'll put at least some of the odds partially in front of you. It's the part that they don't tell you that's the kicker, right? They may tell you one of the odds and say a slot machine, but you're maybe not getting the full picture, or they'll give you some other thing. I wouldn't say that you're totally uninformed. I just think it's what information are they giving you and how much are they leaving out. But I could be wrong. As far as handling maps, I think that's all we've got. All I've got on that one. And we didn't really talk that much about it. We got diverted into other things, but that's okay. Frederick Gork says, Lavender Hack. They got to get Frederick Gork. Lavender Hack's got to get you on the payroll. You bring them out every opportunity to remind me, just by naming them, that I have yet to read it. 36% chance of getting hit in combat. I mean, on the face of it, that sounds pretty good, but I don't know how hard they're hitting you. And does that mean that you'll be dead in 3 rounds? Because in 3 rounds, you're probably going to get hit, and that one hit is a killing blow. So what are they not telling me, Frederick Gork? I want to know. All right. Back to it. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, we've seen that. There's what we just did. Oh, here's a kid-friendly. I don't have any good. I think kid-friendly games. I would think, was it Over the Wall, Other Side of the Wall, Something the Wall. This is one that I read a long time ago. Kid-friendly. I need to find something because my daughter's 7, and I'd like to start getting her doing some games. Frederick Gork says, "Do a read-along of the book." I will. Here's the thing with the read-alongs, right? So I did earlier this week. I guess is a programming note. I did Karn, which was cool. That one I was able to do in one session. I don't know if I want to undertake another super long form read along while the Logan's Run project is still going, because that's on episode 8 and shows no signs of slowing. So I kind of think, should I wrap up one long form thing before I start another long form thing? But then again, I got to at least look at the page count of Lavender Hack, see how big it is, see how long it is. Let's see. Nicholas says, "Hey, Heroes and Treasure is a cool kids game." Cool. I'll look at that. TTRPH. Taryn says, "Pink Floyd's The Wall." I don't think that was it. Oh, he meant TTRPG. Okay. Oh, Terrence has another suggestion. Magical Kitties. I got to look at some of these. Was it Beyond the Wall? Is it Beyond the Wall? Hold on a minute. Prepare for the sound of me typing, because it's just killing me that. Yeah, Beyond the Wall and Other Adventures is the one that I was thinking of as being kid friendly. I do need to find something, because like I said, I want to do something with my daughter. Oh, we got some other suggestions for kids games. Dungeon of Raguak. Amazing art, great maps. Awesome. Also, No Thank You Evil. Kind of conventional suggestion. All right, cool. And then Pugmire. I think I've heard about Pugmire. I kind of think I've heard of No Thank You Evil in at least some passing sense. Okay, what else have we got here? Well, let's see this. Oh, this is a rules question. Well, we'll read it. Maybe get some good answers. All right, let's give an upvote here. Common rulings on trips, grabbles, slams, and other combat actions that not usually cause damage but give situational advantage in combat. Posted by Dragaran21. I was designing a samurai class based on OSC Knight, asterisk, when I realized that I really didn't know how quote-unquote combat maneuvers work in Old School Essentials and other BX clones. So how have you ruled when players have declared, "I am going to trip, grapple, pin, slam into, judo throw, German suplex, disarm, climb on, choke them," and what kind of a mechanical advantage has that action given to players? My gut feeling would be ability check modified if player's class is martial, semi-martial, or non-martial, and targets body type and size. Just targeting AC would not make sense, as that is mostly armor, and combat maneuvers target enemies' abilities to move and attack. Basically, just chancing what they can use, noting that they are armored horse archers. Whoa, I'm not sure what that is. Okay. I guess that's the asterisk part. I'm going to skip that. Lawn darts? Terrence, you're a lawn darts fan? Monty Cook took part in No Thank You Evil. Okay, JD Soul, is that a good thing or a bad thing that Monty Cook was involved? I can't tell from your comment. I have nothing against Mr. Cook, one way or another. Frederick says there was a question today about the Warlock class in OSR. I think maybe, did I see that one? I think maybe I'll have to, well, if it's still up there, maybe we could take a look if we got time. Because I do have kind of a hard stop around in about 12 minutes, so we can see what we find. So on these rulings, I actually kind of like, I used to go back and forth, or I have gone back and forth. I will probably go back and forth again on the mechanic to use. AC is not just armor. It is maybe mostly armor, maybe a little bit of dex, depending. Obviously, if it's heavy armor, yes, it is. I guess if you're wearing plate, it's basically armor. If you're more lightly armored, it is also your ability to kind of dip and dodge out of the way. It presumes that if you're in plate mail, you're not you don't have much dip and dodge to you. You're relying on the plate mail to do its work. Even if you want to take it that way, if we want to say, okay, I still would probably just go with your combat bonus AC versus AC, because if you're trying to grapple someone in plate mail, I presume that's going to cause its own difficulties. Sure, maybe they're not dipping and dodging out of the way that way, but I imagine trying to grab somebody in full plate with potentially a shield and whatever else, I'm willing to say that's harder than, say, grabbing a guy in let's say padded armor, where you can kind of squeeze, get a good grip, it gives, you can kind of squeeze into it, as opposed to plate armor that maybe you could grab a corner or somewhere where the space between the plates, assuming those don't shift and then crush your fingers because it's a joint. It's hard, potentially slippery a little bit. I would just say, I'm willing to say in the abstraction of combat, that's fine. And by using the combat bonuses, then whatever bonuses, assuming that your martial characters are advancing in their combat bonuses faster than half martials and then faster still than no martials, you don't have to add it. That's already all built in. You just use the combat system that's already there. In terms of, well, what do you get out of it? You can kind of make that choice. Grapples, I always have a love-hate relationship with grapples. I get it. I understand them. I understand the appeal of them. But you want to find that balance between, one, something that isn't its own mini game, like you see in some editions. Okay, I want to grapple, so now we got to step aside and we have a whole checklist. Okay, you're gonna strength versus this. Now he's gonna strength versus that. Then you're gonna do this. You're gonna do that. Okay, that's step one, and then step two is you got to go back and do that. I'd rather not have it. I'd rather just be able to say some kind of attack roll, some kind of defense roll. What do you do? One thing you could do is, if you wanted to really say, take armor out of the equation, use their save versus Dragon's Breath or something. That, to me, that save of, can you dodge out of the way? I'm coming to grab you, and I don't care about anything else. I'm just trying to essentially tackle you. You can see that as a save, like, whoa, I gotta. It's not even about anything else. It's just about me jumping out of the way. If you do that, maybe you could give it as the creature's choice. That way, if someone is dipsy doodly, like you're a rogue or something else with a high save like that, then that's a way to leverage something that they're good at as an alternative to armor, which they might not have. You want to give them maybe more credit for being slippery, dodgy in that way, though. AC. If you're using Dex bonus to AC, they might have it. But if you're not, then then they have that. So, whoa, got some chats here going on. You could dodge a wrench, and you could dodge an arrow. Yep, pretty much. And then, Bob Mossel says, guard, turn, parry, dodge, spin, thrust, sprung. Yeah, like kind of Bugs Bunny. I think it's Bugs Bunny. Might be other things too. I definitely got the dodgeball reference. So I would say, depending on how your AC is done, if you're using Dex bonus to AC, it's kind of configured in AC already. If you're not, or if you want to separate it, you can use something like saving throw for your sort of reflex type. Whoa, you got out of the way. As far as what you get out of it, the fifth edition, I'm sure, and probably others too. Yeah, didn't you have like several flavors of grapple? You start off as restrained, and then if you're able to maintain it for a round, then it goes up a level to something else. I don't remember exactly. I'd want to make them not huge advantages, but but enough that they might be situational. And then the slamming into things, judo throws. They're all interesting, but you have to, obviously you want to do things like, how big are these things? Can you judo throw a dragon? No, probably can't. So I'd want to come up with some mechanic there. But yeah, I kind of like the idea of being able to make an attack and then move the other creature around. Right? You take the target and you just kind of maneuver them to somewhere else you want them to be, or away from something you don't want them to be close to. And that can take the form of many things. A judo throw can just be that. And maybe it's something that if you had a martial arts kind of class, then they could inflict damage on it. Whereas otherwise, you just kind of giving them sort of a toss, but they don't really hurt themselves. But now they're on the other side of you, or they've gone from being in this 5 foot square over here to now they're this 5 foot square over there, and that's its own benefit. And that's probably where I would mostly keep it. And then if there's an edge case, like now I'm taking them and slamming him into the wall. I don't know, unless you have super strength, I don't know that that's really going to do that much. I mean, something is in armor, you're in armor, you're slamming them against the wall. I don't really see that as doing a whole bunch of damage. Maybe probably not enough to count even as a hit point, but I don't know. I'd be willing to read different. I'd be willing to be open to it. Daffy Duck, Bob Muscle says, yep, I remember that now. Rules Encyclopedia Wrestling rating. Yeah, that's where I don't want to get into. I don't want to get into all kinds of wrestle ratings. And this, I guess for me personally, I want to avoid that kind of detail. The only thing that would convince me to put that stuff in the game is if I had somebody who wanted to specifically be some kind of wrestler. I want to be a wrestler, and that's going to be my whole thing all day, every day. Then I might think for that, I'd want to have some specific mechanics because they're going to be using it all the time. If it's just going to be in every once in a while in a specific circumstance, it's going to come up, then I'd probably do without it. I don't need it. Don says, Judo Throw a Dragon coming in 6th edition, probably. Or as Frederick says, 5.9. Yeah, yep, somewhere in there. Now, nothing says, in my Heartbreaker, if you hit an enemy and it doesn't hit you in the round, you could move it 5 feet. It gets a save if it would be pushed off a cliff. That's interesting. So you mean if it doesn't hit you, like it tries to hit you and misses, or it doesn't attempt to hit you? Well, that's kind of an interesting rule. DC 13, double arm bar. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I like to lean on those things. I'm not someone that wants to build a whole mechanic just for kind of one thing, edge cases. I've had stuff like the player, one point, one of the players jumped. It was sort of I guess in a gigantic size, and he jumped on top and he was messing with it. I just made, I think, a simple kind of roll, and I just tried to figure out what it was, and then he's on top of the thing. If they do that a lot, I might want to build in some more mechanics about it, but if it's just a once in a blue moon thing, then just happy just to get it, to come up with something that works to everyone's satisfaction in that moment and not be overly concerned. Where are we on time? All right, 3 minutes left. Let's see. Do we have some fast? Looking for something fast. All right. Or does anyone have any last things? If you guys have some good stuff in the chat, then you can forego me trying to find something. Oh, here we go. Terrence says I cast a Jackknife Power Bomb. All right, Diesel. Super kick. Yeah. Paladin, free OSR, stock art. All right, this might be quick. Any free resources for generating hex encounters? I'm interested in this one. I don't know if I have any, but I'm interested. Don said, Northern Lights suplex a bugbear. Yeah. The Macho Man elbow off the top rope into the swarm. That'll be a good one. All right. They're looking for something free. This is posted by Equilibrium. Any free resources for generating hex encounters? I know they're out there. I'm curious. I don't have any particular answers. I'm actually want to see about some. Oh, Hex Describe. Was that the one I was thinking about that had the text? Yes. This was the one. That was, and text mapper. Yep. That was the one I was thinking of before. So look at that. We get to come full circle. So that's what I was trying to figure out before. And then also, so Hex describe will generate a bunch of hexes, and then text mapper, which is on the same site, turn those to a map. And my suggestion was for that one hex tool we looked at the very beginning. So if you missed that part of the chat, then feel free to go back and check it out. Was to be able to have them come up with something in a format that would work with text mapper and hex describe. And then Idle Doodler comments D4 Caltrops monster activities table. A lot of stuff in there. I'll put this in the chat also. OSC encounter activity tables. There's another one. And we got one more. I got time for one more. Oh, that one, someone's converted it for use with Inspiration Pad Pro. I'll have to come in and check that out. I actually finally downloaded Inspiration Pad Pro, but I haven't done much with it. Is there anything more? I think that's also looking at Hex Describe, another call Hex Describe, Lands of Legends, Axion Spice. I've looked at a couple of those on the channel. You can check those out. Nicholas says, I know you have a hard stop, but thanks for the fun lunchtime show. Hey, you are welcome. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I guess I will call it quits. I will put a link to this because there are some good resources here. I'll just call this Hex Encounter Resources Reddit post. So go here, post it in the screen. Check this out. I don't have time to go through everything since I got to bail out, but there's the Reddit where you could probably search for it in the OSR Reddit. Hey, thanks, Don, for coming. Hope you're not a stranger. If you haven't given a thumbs up yet, can you give a thumbs up on the way out? I'd appreciate it. If you're in here and you're not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. But otherwise, thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, evening, whenever. I got to run. I'll be back. Hey, thanks, Marcelo, as always, for joining. But take it easy, everybody. Game on. Peace out.